alert to Detroit.
We're live. Okay. Good morning. It's now 9 a.m. and I will call the Sewage and Water Board Finance and Administration Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Sloss, Director Howard,
Here.
Director Pacho,
Here.
Director Barnes, Director Kennedy.
Here.
Chair, we do have a quorum.
Good. We'll now proceed with our two presentation items. Gray Lewis will provide the board's financial summary update.
All right, good morning. Thank the opportunity to give the committee an update. I'm going to jump into the February financials here. For the month, the operating revenue is $26.5 million, above budget. As we discussed last month, there was some distortion and lower amounts in January. That was good to see. March has also looked a little more stabilized. Operating expenses of $25.2 million, it's under our conservative budget. And then there below, we're just breaking it down by water, sewer, drainage, focusing on the operating expenses. It was water was $8.98 million for the month, sewer $9.47 million, drainage is $6.7 million each under the monthly budgeted. So we're already into quarter two. Hard to believe, but the overall revenue trailing about $8.6 million is less than the favorable variance on expenses is about $16 million. So lots we're continuing to monitor to keep an eye on especially revenue, but expenses as well because of the new things that we're doing this year. So click to the next. Click over to cash collections. The number that I just received yesterday, so March, was $20,586,977. So a little bit of improvement over January, February. That gave us a quarterly average of about 19.23 million. Still a little below the prior year averages. So we're actively working with PromisePay on a couple of the outreach campaigns. We've now been with them over a year. We've got some ideas with outreach with like an amnesty program and starting in June that the city's interested in doing to ask customers to come forward, sign up for a payment plan and have like a fee, any late fees that are unpaid be waived. So we think that outreach effort will be in the right direction, get people in the regular payment pattern as much as possible now with the smart metering. So continue to work on that with our consultants and PromisePay.
So, great. Amnesty versus PromisePay. Why is PromisePay not working for this?
Well, PromisePay is the sort of the technology solution that can reach out to the customer with the link or the text, and then the sort of the description of the campaign being like, come make an initial payment, sign up for a payment plan. You will be amnestied, or we'll take your late fees and credit those as a incentive to get the sign up. So it's basically developing a program with business rules, fitting that into our existing technology with PromisePay, and having that be a quick way to get it out to the customers.
So what is an amnesty program forgive then?
Well, we're using the term, but I guess the initial discussion had to do with late fees. So this was done at the end of 2022 when the city did something similar. So that's some fees that we tacked on when the customer was late, or we didn't really have a truck roll, so to speak, or an expense to go out. So that's viewed as something that could help customers sign up, pay, but I think it makes sense to come back to the committee with, here's sort of a program of various things to get people to sign up for PromisePay that after a year still haven't, and see if the Finance Administration Committee has some additional feedback. But at some point with PromisePay, the customers that have signed up, and then you're just sort of following up with people that haven't responded before.
Okay.
So several things that were in discussion, working closely with Susanna Kirby. She's actually going to update us on HGI and a couple of the recent meetings. We sent couple emails last week. So we had a meeting. Some of you were present. Thank you very much for that support there on March 26th. We met with HGI. And then last week on April 2nd, we met with Curo and the arbiters. So Suzanne's going to share an update.
Yes, and Director Kennedy, Director Page should jump in anytime. But so we met a couple weeks ago with Curo and HGI and just asked for them to provide some of the methodologies behind their decisions, especially with the increased adjustments that were in Q4, so that we can, be better equipped to explain to our auditors and position of why the decisions were made. They have provided some initial information and kind of spoke to us briefly about the decisions. We're still kind of looking at that and seeing if we need more. As we've talked about, it has trended down in this first quarter of 2025. April 2nd, we met with the arbiters that are now in place. They are setting their calendars and are going to start hearing cases probably in May. The one thing that did change is that the way they read the ordinance is that Sewage and Water Board cannot go to arbitration. So that was the big news last week. However, HGI does have their own internal process where they do what they call reconsiderations. So they'll issue a decision. Their lead counsel, Scott, will review it if he thinks there's cause that there may have been a mistake or an error in the calculation, and will issue a reconsideration letter to the customer saying that it's been changed. And so we, as Sewage and Water Board, are going to be allowed to be part of that process. So I will still review the cases. If there's a case that I feel needs reconsideration, I will put that up to HGI with all of the justification and have that done. If he reconsiders it, the process would be that the customer would get the letter, and if they still disagree, their next step would be arbitration. So as the legislation reads and how it was interpreted by the Representative Hilferty who wrote it, and the arbiters, is that customers are the only ones who can go to arbitration.
Well, that's a fair system, isn't it?
Well, the way the sequence of events led to this kind of conflict, when the state legislation was created, it was presumed that we would be the decision makers, and then the customer would have the arbiters to go to dispute our decision. Mm-hmm. After that, the city council introduced the HGI piece in the process, where now they make the decisions independent of us at the time. So now the state legislation did not account for that. So now we got caught in no man's land, so to speak, and then we have no means to dispute based on the legislation, but we can dispute based on the city ordinance. So one of them, ultimately, if Susanna's approach now is to just navigate through it and make it work, if it doesn't, we'll have to change the city ordinance, or something has to change to allow us to dispute.
I thought it was a state law that didn't allow us to dispute.
Right, that's what I thought too. The state law?
Yeah, so it's really
Yes.
both, right? So the way the city ordinance is written is that HGI has the final decision, and the customer would then go to the state arbitration. The state legislation says the same thing, that the customer, if they don't agree with the dispute decision, can go to state arbitration, and that's the final decision. So it is kind of conflicting.
Yeah, I mean, what I meant to say is that the city ordinance has to change to not force us to execute on HGIs right away, but rather hold, I guess, to what we believe and forcing the customer to dispute, because that would be the only one, it's a one-way dispute. So there's a way to remove the conflict, but we're trying to get it done without needing to change anything.
We're not, we don't have law in, a change of law in.
Ultimately, that could be what we need to do, but for now, because there are a lot of cases that are being held in abeyance because of the arbiters that weren't ready, and we weren't aware of this conflict until recently. So now we're trying to resolve these outstanding issues and then kind of move forward with
With an existing internal
modified plan.
process that HGI has, so just being incorporated in that. So, you know, it's just something to keep an eye on, and I'll let the board know how it works or not, and then we'll need to, based on that, take next steps possibly to.
But if, I mean, if it's legislative, we either take them now or it's not gonna be till next year.
Well, this
Yeah, I
would be
mean-
for the city ordinance, not the,
Yeah,
We can do the city stuff. The ci-
yeah.
But if we still have state law that says we can't appeal,
But the city triggers it, right?
So what we would be requesting if we went to the city would be for them to change to this, what Executive Director Gassan was talking about is right now with the city ordinance, if we forget the state, but just for the city, as soon as HGI makes a decision, we're required to put that in our system without dispute. However, once we get that in the system and I see it and I want to dispute it or have it reconsidered, I can go to the second step, which is taking it directly to Scott saying, look at this again, these are the facts behind it, I think something was missed. And if he agrees with me, he will issue a second letter to the customer saying, your case has been reconsidered. So all of that is done outside of the state. So that's what we're working through right now. It is a little
So
muddled, but that's it.
I wanted to jump back on something I know you're interested in. When we walked out of the meeting, there were some deliverables from HGI. And so what we're expecting from them is to stratify the different groups in lieu of an actual equation that they use to solve for, you know, how they're gonna issue credits, at least stratify with descriptions of all the different buckets, so to speak, that these cases fall in. This will allow us to see not just why, but identify any patterns or trends to see if there's something that we need to address that we haven't already addressed. We know anomalies are anomalies, but what are all the other reasons? And so that's what we're expecting from them.
Yeah, they provided a document, the categories or what they've said, what they said in the meeting. They, I think, indicated they would mark those as they now report to council on a monthly basis. I'd like to, I guess, return that back to them and say, well, here's our comments on what you sent us. Our auditors also said X, Y, and Z, you know, they're gonna have some comments. And we'll just try and continue to work with them to get more information, but that's, if there's anything the board, finance committee would like to include in that reply back, then, you know.
Yeah, I think this is the committee where it would be appropriate for us to see what they've turned in every time, every month, whatever they've presented, so we can see what those credits are, and then we can decide if we need to address it, or at least it would be an information item for us.
Yeah,
We can
that's
do that.
the quarterly report that we sent last week is what he sends typically on the last day of the month from HCI. So we'll include that each month, see if we have improved documentation or not.
and there's one more piece just to close the loop, and for the record, HCI's role is going to start diminishing as the more smart meters are installed. At one point, there's a cutoff point where there's no need for them anymore. And then we become the decision maker in terms of disputed bills, and then it would fit well with the current legislation. So long-term, I think there's a good coherent plan, but now it's just a little bit messy just because of the conflict, so.
Okay, so pick up, highlight the numbers for receivables are pretty flat over month. We're working on the estimate for the allowance for doubtful accounts. The auditors, like I say, are involved looking at these numbers right now. If we look for the 64.8 million, about 1% higher past due customer accounts. Of these, 13,760 are in active payment plans out of the 26,000. On the next slide, we break out by the size of the past due balances. This first category, at the end of the month, 11,355 customers had a balance of less than $500. However, just 33,228 were on active payment plans. So overall, the number's 53% at the end of the month. So like I mentioned earlier, we continue to work with PromisePay on the outreach, getting more customers signed up. On the dashboard this month, wanted to just highlight the days cash on hand, calculated 166 for water, 164 for sewer. These metrics are updated each month, but the end of the year is the one done for the covenant calculation. So for end of last year is what we're working on right now to get the audited figures. The questions, I'll skip ahead. Debt obligations, we had routine monthly activity for our loan draws, or we've done the cost of issuance on the water loan for the lead service line, the first draw on that. So that closed at the end of last year. Next slide is our capital activity for the month. We have 28.3 million in invoices paid, monthly disbursements, and appropriations of 55.3 million as we continue to move ahead on the fiscal 25 capital appropriation. In the grants section there at the bottom, we had about 757,000. We have been, I guess, notified with the change with GOSEP and the state changes in dissolving GOSEP that there's currently a longer expected lead time on reviewing invoices and getting reimbursements to us. So we're, of course, asking questions about exactly what that means. We don't have a lot of details, but there's some meetings set up later this week with some state people. I understand the city has a similar concern or similar questions. So hopefully we'll get to have some more insights. I think March 7th was the last regular FEMA reimbursement that we received. Change orders, there's no real activity for the current month that impacted our CIP spending plans for the month. And then I think the next section is on the customer service statistics. I was gonna pass
Yeah,
Suzanne to highlight.
no real changes. Still moving along. We have, I think, last week or this week, I know we brought on 4 or 5 new call center agents. So I expect that number to get better in the next month. But we're still tracking.
Just a couple other highlights. This slide is go past the customer service contact. I think it's the one I wanted to highlight is the service disconnects. We continue to use this as a last resort, with our normal collections process. So for the month of February, it had it slightly higher on the gray bar for the number of service disconnects. And then this next slide is our actual bills. As you know, we have now the law in place with no estimated, so it was 93%, so is one of the highest numbers. There's a few thousand meters we still have particular either challenges reading or access issues, so we continue to work with the GSO and getting those switched to smart meters, getting that number needs to get up to closer to that 99% every month, because the manual meters, now we're over 100,000 on the smart meter. The manual reading is less, around 40,000 roughly. So continue to make progress there. So that was all the comments about February. As I mentioned, March, saw a little glimpse into the numbers, look a little more stabilized. Continue to have the smart metering impacting the consistency of billing, so looking forward to that. Happy to answer any other questions about February.
Do you have any concern, last year, I think we only had 1 month under 19 million revenue. I think we had only 3 months under 20. And we're starting off this year, 2 months under 19, 3 months under 20. Do you see, is there, and I know that we had some anomalies with the snow, Super Bowl. We've had some unusual things in the first quarter that have impacted various facets. But as far as revenue, and I know we had this, we spiked with HGI, Promise Pay is a year old. Like with all the factors coming in, do you think that we need to maybe reassess how we fund reserves at all, or when we get to that point? Or is there anything that needs to be revisited? How do you feel about just that reality waking up and we don't look as good as we did last year?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to reassess spending and tighten up where possible on discretionary items just because of the first quarter and the cash flow like we see, like we mentioned, because we can campaign to customers, we ask them to prioritize the utility billing, but at the end of the day, yeah, we need to react accordingly on the spending side and just educate or make sure our different division leads are on the same page in terms of planning for the rest of fiscal 25.
Mm-hmm. We've asked a number of times for a new plan for what we're going to do about the collectibles, because we just keep rolling. I know we put Promise Pay in, but the numbers continue to be really bad on that. And clearly we need some kind of new approach to this, I think.
I think one of the things that's encouraging, I heard from Susanna, that team is continuing to be hired and trained, right?
Yes.
That was one of the things we had asked before, and there was a plan to address customer service more. A specialized team of customer service, right? So is that?
But if people aren't paying their...
Is that? Oh, that's your Jen.
I'm sorry, I turned it off.
I was like, where is
Oh,
it?
it's pretty. God, my apologies. But we have this kind of chronic problem with just people that don't pay.
Yeah.
And something has to be done about it. And I don't know what the options are, but can we get a plan?
Yeah, this is the smart metering disconnect. I think the metric, like increasing number of disconnects on a monthly basis, tying it into the smart metering strike team is where we're going. I want to add.
Maybe you get back to that slide. I mean, we're clearly utilizing our really only option now is to, reach out to the customer and say, please pay, otherwise we have no choice but to shut you off. And the numbers are obviously, unfortunately, high because, that's not a good conclusion. But ultimately, to be honest with you, we need a stronger customer assistance program that is maybe somewhat partially board funded, but also city funded. I mean, there's a population in the city that just either don't prioritize bills or just by the time they pay their higher priority costs, they're out of money. So that's a real issue in the city, and we haven't really looked at it in any meaningful way. And
Well, I know, I guess I'm asking to have it
Yeah,
looked
I
at in
mean-
some kind of meaningful
So
way. To come up with a plan, whether it involves going to the city or something else. I mean, they've got a housing fund now that could be theoretically available, since utility costs are part of how you compute the percentage that's being spent on housing.
yeah, I mean, we felt like the HGI piece had to, I guess, come in first for removing disputes, and at one point, we need to lean on the city in the same way. Like, if you have an HGI team that can resolve disputes, why can't we have another team on behalf of the city that can vet who needs help and find way to help them?
I guess what I'm asking for is a strategy. I mean, a worked out strategy that can come to the finance committee so we can, you know, decide whether it's something to proceed with. I mean, am I out of?
Yeah, I think we kind of have 3 points of attack that we've discussed. We just need to formalize it for you guys and bring it to you guys. But we do kind of have at least in customer service, a plan. Just need to formalize it and see how we can make it.
To formalize it and figure out how to implement it. That's,
Exactly,
um,
exactly.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing from Gassan is that in terms of priorities, customers see Sewage and Water Board as a non-priority. They pay other bills first.
That's clear.
How do you address that? I mean, how do we plan or strategize to address that? You know, if it's a mental thing, we can, you know, Sewage and Water Board is not on my priority list. So how do we try to address that in terms of saying to customers, it has to be a priority? And what impacts it further is that if they're not going to be disconnected, then there's no real threat to losing water service. So they just continue the same pattern month after month.
Couldn't agree
Am I
more.
correct?
I know we don't control. One missing piece here is that we need the council to play a role here. One, in changing the narrative that we're a utility that sends erroneous bills on regular basis, and that's all we do. That has to change, and it is changing in reality. But we also need them to start speaking up that if you owe money to the utility, you must pay, and if you don't, there's a consequence, and if you can't afford it, here's a lifeline for you. So we have to bring him into the fold, and that should be part of the strategy.
Any other questions on the financial update? Okay.
Okay.
Next presentation is a different topic that we typically have on the finance, but we're talking about the employees' deferred compensation plan that's currently offered. It's a defined contribution plan. Employees can elect to defer pre-tax salaries into their own accounts. They're maintained by outside vendors, no cost to SWIBNO. So this is a qualified plan under IRC Internal Revenue Code Section 457B, which is our version of 401ks. So very common. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. We have 3 primary vendors: Corebridge, Valic, Corebridge Financial, which is Valic Insurance Company, Nationwide, and Equitable. And each week, these contributions are administered through our payroll process and forwarded to the vendors. The employees contact the third parties, set up retirement selections, and basically plan for retirement. It's a very critical part for all employees to be doing this on a regular basis, but it is voluntary. It's open to all employees. So looking back at the old documents, this old plan document we have is amended in 2001. And what we're doing here, or asking to do, is restate this plan document with an updated document. And what that is both a basic plan document and a plan adoption agreement. So to work hand in hand and basically define all of the rules that the SWIBNO deferred compensation plan would be administered under on a go-forward basis. And our vendor, came to Gassan. Gassan's been working on this very diligently. Really just another employee benefit modernization. And this new document has features that most of the other plans already have. So we're just catching up, if you will, in terms of features. So now employees could elect after-tax contributions. They could have additional access through participant loans within limitations. And then it allows for rollover contributions from other qualified 457, other types of defined contribution plans. Also have in-service withdrawals once you're age 59 and a half, and Roth conversion. So all these are things that are allowed for in the rules for 457B plans. And again, everyone continues to be eligible. There's no cost to SWIBNO. So we thought it was a good thing to do. We've already gone through the process with legal, HR, benefits, finance, looking through the documents that have been prepared and included in the packet for everyone. So next steps will be execution, and then payroll would implement, and we begin to remit those contributions weekly. So another good thing, we believe, for the HR Connect program to have another benefit and encourage people to get involved, get it in a routine habit of regular savings. So, any questions on the deferred comp update?
I'd just like to comment, I think it might, I know there's no cost to Sewage and Water Board, but I would like to say I think employees would benefit if we chose one vendor, because the internal costs are passed on to the employees. And with one vendor, the collective group could hit breakpoints to lower those costs, those internal costs to our employees. I think that should be under consideration the next time we, want to do an amendment to the plan or revisit this plan. Very familiar with them. I also think we are lacking a mirror or 162, an executive comp plan, because those plans what we have in the 457 tops out and excludes our highly compensated employees for their full opportunity. So I think one thing I think needs to be reviewed for our employees' benefit. The other needs to be addressed for our HCEs who don't get to fully participate in the 457. And so we need to address that at some point.
Yeah, I think we agree. These are topics that have come up with the HR benefits team, and the consolidating the vendors makes a lot of sense. So this sort of step in that direction. So we'll be working on that, and happy to get with you separately on exploring those. So.
Thank you, Gray. So anyway, now we'll proceed to the action items. We have one action item, followed by 6 general superintendent's recommendations. The first action item is Resolution R0622025, authorization of execution of restated plan document, Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans Deferred Comp Plan. Okay, we've had the description of that, right? Is there anything to add, Gray?
That's all.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve Resolution R-062-2025?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Comment?
No public comment, Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Then we'll now move on to the General Superintendent's recommendations. I don't think Stephen Nelson's presenting today.
Good morning, everyone. Stevie Yang, filling in for Steve Nelson. We have 6 items on the agenda. The first 2 are awards, the next 2 are change orders, and the final 2 are acceptances. Starting with the first 2, the first resolution, R048-2025, award of contract 2025 SWB 15, furnishing liquid ferric sulfate between the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and USALCO. This was a low bid contract, or a low bid proposal. There were 3 bids originally. The low and responsive bidder is USALCO at $3.7 million. There is no DBE participation in this contract because it is a specialty contract. This is to purchase chemicals for our water purification plant. The next resolution, R049-2025, award of contract 2025 SWB 10 drainage system cleaning and inspection services between the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and Compliance Enviro Systems. This had two original proposals, one from Atacapal, the other from Compliance Enviro Systems. The committee has selected with the high score with CES, that's the Compliance Enviro Systems. Their bid came in at $8 million. And again, this is for us to take over the small drainage from the city of New Orleans. This is for us to do our assessments, to do our cleanings. And so that's what I had. So if there's any questions on those two?
I just have a question about why we have such wild variations in the pricing on these things. Any idea?
No.
I mean, I would suspect the second bidder was unfamiliar with the environment and they assume a lot of risk.
Okay.
The first one is very familiar with the city and they've been, a vendor for the city for a long time. So that drives the cost, and obviously they're just being familiar and want to make sure that they stay the dominant contractor in town, so.
So may I have a motion to approve contract awards renewals resolution R-048, 2025, and R-049, 2025?
So moved.
Any discussion? Public comment?
Public comment, Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, so we'll move on to contract change order by ratification.
Yes, so the first one we have is Resolution R27, 2025, change order number 2 for contract 30246, restoration of gravity flow sanitary sewer mains by point repairs at various sites throughout City of New Orleans, Orleans Parish between the Sewage and Water Board and Wallace C. Drennan. This contract adds $750,000 to this contract specifically to make repairs to small drain lines. This originally is a sewer contract, but since it's gravity, we're utilizing it for drainage repairs needed in the time frame between us getting our own contract specifically for the small drain line cleanings or repairs. The second resolution change order is Resolution R043, 2025, ratification of change order number 4 for contract 2155 TM003, transmission main replacement of South Claiborne, Versailles to Upper Line between Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and BLD Services. So this is a ratification of the change order 4. It has been modified because we found a leak in the roadway once the construction was completed. We thought it was a item that would be under warranty, but it fell out of warranty. It was not on the pipe that we thought it was, and so we went back and had to modify the field changes, and this is the result of that.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve contract change order by ratification resolutions R-027, 2025, and R-043, 2025?
So move.
A second.
Discussion?
Just a question. Is Drennan the contractor that continuously sues Sewage and Water Board?
Not that I'm aware.
On occasion.
Okay.
I saw what you saw.
Huh?
I saw what you saw.
Just, all right.
Public comment?
No public comment, Chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. You in favor?
Okay. For our final two resolutions, these are acceptances. Resolution R042, 2025, authorization of final acceptance of contract 1415 West Power Complex Foundations underground package between Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and M.R. Pittman Group. This is just a standard acceptance of that contract. For the second resolution, R044, 2025, authorization of final acceptance of contract 2155 transmission main replacement, South Claiborne, Versailles up to Upper Line, TM003, between the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans and BLD Services. Again, this one was changed because of the change order that had to be amended as well. And so in order to make this right, we're ratifying the change order and then also doing the same for the final acceptance letter.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve final acceptance resolutions R-042, 2025, and R-044, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment, Chair.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we have 3 information items for committee members to review at their convenience. Are there any other public
No
comments?
public comments.
Okay, if there are no other matters, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We're now adjourned.
Good.